Okay, so good evening, everyone. My name is Michał Burdukiewicz, and I have a pleasure of introducing today Leis,
Okay, so good evening,
Sydeaka, our great speaker. But before that, I will show you a bit about what our upcoming event, why our conference. It will be really brief, and then we are going to watch our speaker. But before that, please let me please write in your in the YouTube chat, where are you from? From where are you exactly watching us? We are extremely interested where our community is growing, and we will be extremely happy to see where you are now and where you are watching us. So first and for all, why ARC 2020 is a fourth edition of our conference. It happens in 2 weeks, from 24th to 27th of September. We have 6 great keynotes, among them Frank Haller, Roger Bivant, Renu Pius, Jan Bitek, Małgorzata Bogdan, and Julia Silch. This is our agenda. So we are starting on Wednesday, on 23rd, with a great hackathon. The hackathon is global, so the talks and the talks and presentations happen all the time. On Friday, we have 2 blocks of workshops, and on Saturday and Sunday we have our guests and also our keynotes, and also discussion panels, and of course lectures submitted by members of our community. These are our workshops. I am very happy that we have workshops addressed to beginning and advanced users of R. And our sponsor, McKinsey, is also organizing its recruiting panel during that time. And I want to remind you that on 23rd of September happens our text mining hackathon. It's not only R, so we are very open to users of other languages in data science. We'll be very happy to see you there. And without further ado, I want to give the time and of course the opportunity to speak to our great guest. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here, and see you on YR. Bye.
Thank you, Michael. And well, hello, everyone. I can see there's lots of people from Ireland as well in the chat. Hello. I would love to introduce our speaker for today, Sydeaka. So Sydeaka is a senior data scientist from AT&T, a US-based telecommunication company. She's a very strong R programmer with experience of applying big data tools and machine learning methods to deliver actionable insights to senior business leaders and stakeholders. And she'll be talking to us today about data science for social justice. Well, Sydeaka, the floor is yours. Welcome. How are you? Sorry, you're muted.
Hi, yes, I was muted. Sorry about that. Thank you very much for that introduction, Lais, and welcome to everyone who's attending today. Definitely excited to share information about social justice work, which is something that I've been working on for a long time, and hope you'll be empowered and excited about working on as well. So thank you. Okay, so before we get started, I would like to take a moment to thank the YR webinar organizers for selecting my topic for today's discussion. And I'd like to thank you all for attending. Let's see. Just want to make sure I'm currently sharing. All right, we're good. So here's a brief outline of my talk. I will start by sharing a little bit about my background and my interest in this topic. I will provide some context as to what social justice activism could look like as a data scientist as opposed to other forms of activism. I will share information about how you could get involved, either on your own initiative or aligned with some existing social justice initiatives. And finally, I'll end with some concluding remarks. So here's a little bit about me. I have no formal experience on the social justice scene. My background is in math and statistics. I have not worked in public policy. I'm not a lawyer. I haven't helped with any political campaigns. I'm just a math nerd, right? As you can see from my extensive education in math and statistics up to the PhD level. But for many years, of course, I've used my talents in the scientific community, working as a biostatistician for several years, and also more recently as a data scientist at various organizations, as well as in my own consulting company. I've also been a member of the Black community and the female community for 38 years. That's just my entire life. I'm familiar with the experiences of Black people in particular in the United States and how we've had to struggle at times to be seen as human, to get basic freedoms and liberties. And I've witnessed examples of injustices in my family, in my own community. And of course, I see what's happening in other communities in the news. So my interest in this topic has grown out of those experiences as I think about ways that I can make a difference using my voice and my talents. One second. Okay. So I'm sure a lot of us are familiar with the term, but I thought I would begin by providing a definition so that we're all on the same page of what data science is all about. So data science, of course, is a mix of statistics, computer science, big data technologies that allow you to extract insights from data and use those insights to solve problems and make decisions. And this framework has been leveraged by a lot of large and small companies in order to power some of the cool technologies that are becoming more commonly used today. You're probably familiar with some of the more popular examples of data science applications, such as fraud detection and self-driving cars. Data scientists at Facebook and YouTube are developing algorithms that show you the optimal set of content that will keep you on their platform for as long as possible. And we are, of course, familiar with some of the data science applications that extend to other areas, including the military and other forms of government all over the world, really. Okay, so that's data science with social justice activism. All right, social justice is a squishy term that can mean different things to different people or groups. In the Oxford reference, social justice is defined as the objective of creating a fair and equal society in which each individual matters, their rights are recognized and protected, and their decisions are made in ways that are fair and honest. So this isn't just about policy. Each of us has a responsibility to create this fair and equal society, to actively find where there are some groups or some members of our societies that are not protected, and do what we can to create the kinds of change we want to see in our communities. So with that definition, we see social justice as an umbrella term that characterizes equality with regard to so many aspects of the human experience. So everyone should have a voice in the political system. Everyone should have equal opportunity and fair wages in the workplace. Everyone should have access to fresh water, healthy food, adequate health care, and education. Different racial or ethnic groups shouldn't have different experiences with the criminal justice system. And we shouldn't make decisions to create unsafe environments for vulnerable communities. So we shouldn't be deciding that certain communities, such as those in like Flint, Michigan, for example, here in the United States, they shouldn't have access to clean drinking water. We should have this fair and equitable system, but of course, unfortunately, that's not the case. Now, we might be tempted to think that things are getting better, but this photo shows a split view of protests in the 1960s on the left, next to 2020 protests on the right. And if you read the signs, you'll notice that some of these communities are calling out for the same injustices today as they were concerned about 30 years ago. So you might be asking yourself, okay, well, what does this have to do with me, right? You might say, I'm working in data analytics. I'm a software developer. I'm not into marching or lobbying or boycotts or any of the things that we normally associate with activism. Is there any sort of space for me to use my talents for social good? I'm sure you figured out by now, given the title of the talk, that the answer is yes. A lot of the things that you might be doing in your current data science roles in your day job are relevant to the fight for social justice. So if you have experience with identifying data sources, data ingestion, data management, such as in a database or environment or in the cloud, creating dashboard or creating data visualizations, building statistical models, machine learning models. Maybe you have experience with software engineering, maybe you have experience with project management. there's room for you to work on some of these problems. So you could use those skills to help some sort of organization that has decided to focus on one of these particular initiatives, tackle some important problems that highlight inequities and actively work to change them. And this would include many problems in areas such as community policing and public safety, health, education, finance, voting, so many others. A lot of the movements have problems with storytelling. They don't have the data that they need, or they do have the data, but they don't really know how to effectively generate the insights, right? Because we're technical people, but some of the non-technical people need to understand this. They don't care so much about the fancy, R package you use or the fancy advanced modeling technique that you use. They just want to know, okay, what is the insight? What is it, the key takeaway? And how can I use that in order to make decisions, right? So we need to, it is possible for us to leverage our skills in order to enable those different types of groups. And so, but another problem that some of these organizations are facing is that they actually have the expertise that they need in all these different areas that I'm listing on the left, but they're finding that there's just simply too much work to be done. So they just don't have enough skilled people to tackle all the problems that need their attention. And that's where we come in. That's essentially the purpose of this talk. I have developed some personal relationships with many organizations over the years, some that I have personally worked with, and others are working on causes that I'm passionate about, so I actively follow their progress along certain initiatives. So first, I'd like to highlight a couple of the higher profile projects that will help you understand what data science social justice activism looks like. And then I'd like to share specific projects that are actively looking for volunteers like you to sign on and help them with their work. One program is called the Data Science for Social Good program. It used to be based at the University of Chicago in Illinois in the United States. Now it seems that they've moved the program to Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh. And I recall that there was a London component. I'm not sure if that part is still happening. So that's something that you could definitely check their website and learn more about. But they do host the summer program where they invite data science enthusiasts to spend some time working on solving problems that are not necessarily tied to helping a company make more money, but where the focus is on, as they say in their promo materials, tackling problems that really matter. So they work with students, postdocs, and professionals currently working in industry. And you could go to their website if you'd like to learn more about their program. The Data Science for Social Good program worked on a project that was aligned with the 2015 White House Police Data Initiative. They wanted to use some data to identify whether some police officers were at risk of adverse events that might include being overly aggressive, unjustified use of force, police officers that end up having a lot of complaints against them. So they would like to predict this type of behavior ahead of time with the intention of intervening before these police officers really end up harming someone. So the work that they did was well received. It was actually widely deployed in several police departments across the United States. And they actually reported several different news outlets, including Scientific American, Chicago Tribune, provided some information about the success of these different programs and how they were actually actively changing practice. And so I definitely encourage you to check it out and learn more about the work they're doing. And by the way, I forgot to mention this before, but my slides are going to be available. So I don't want you to have to worry about trying to hurry up and write down all of these links that I'm going to share. So I will make sure that the organizers have access to this and that we can share it on the YouTube page or wherever we think is appropriate to share that. The Data Science for Social Good program also produced a toolkit called Equitas, and it was designed for auditing machine learning models for discrimination and bias. So you might be familiar with IBM's tool, AI Fairness 360. They had released a comparable tool, but this one was, designed just, from a social good perspective through this group. And so it's possible that a model that you're building for whatever purpose might tend to give an unfair advantage to one group over another, or maybe it tends to make mistakes more often in some groups compared to others. So as organizations are depending more heavily on machine learning models to predict things about people and classify them as one thing or another, it's important that we understand the limitations of these models so that we can tweak them and make sure that they work for everyone. And one of the examples that they highlight on the website is this COMPAS risk assessment score, which is used in the US criminal justice system to predict how likely a person is to reoffend. These scores are not just nice to know scores. They're actively used in cases, and in court, the judge can use this to decide how long a person's prison sentence can be, or how high their bail should be set at, and whether or not they should go on parole. Sorry, I've got two different monitors happening here. Okay, so that sounds great in theory, but it's not so great when this kind of system can be used to treat people unfairly. A lot of groups have studied this scoring system and have found that this model tends to be more lenient to white offenders and more stringent to Black offenders. And so with software like Equitas, you can actually see evidence of this numerically as opposed to relying on anecdotal feelings or information. I'd like to highlight one other organization, the Algorithmic Justice League. And this was founded by Joy Buolamwini when she was a student at MIT. She was noticing that facial recognition software didn't always recognize her face as a face, right? Like, she's a human. She knows that, facial recognition software is supposed to see this part of an image should contain a face, and it's my face, but she's finding that it was not finding her face. And so she started to dig into it a bit more and found that there were other examples of bias in facial recognition software against other types of faces, where it struggled to identify certain types of people of different ethnic backgrounds. And she actually shared her experience in a TED Talk that I highly encourage you to check out, and I'll make sure a link to that TED Talk is available in the notes as well. She published her results in a paper in a machine learning research conference journal, and noticed that there's only two authors on this paper. It's just herself and a contact at Microsoft, presumably the one that was related to this Microsoft product, this facial recognition product. So this was actually a really, really interesting initiative where she just kind of decided on her own, okay, this is important to me and I want to look into this. So in her research, she looked at how well different facial recognition software identified the gender of a person using a collection of images of people of various ethnic backgrounds and shades and genders. And she found that the results were quite startling. You can see that the accuracy of the algorithm was highest for lighter skinned males. And then the next highest performance was for lighter skinned females, which had very high accuracy across the board for these three different facial recognition products that she was evaluating. Darker males came in third place at around 88% accuracy or above in the three different models. And then for darker females, the three models consistently gave poor performance. So it just kind of goes to show that, especially when you're building an algorithm, you get some sort of a high accuracy rate, or, you're reasonably satisfied with it. You're like, okay, we can go home. But everybody's paying, money for this one product, and, but some people, it's actually working better for some people compared to other people. So this is not fair, especially when this is used, in the recent protests that were happening here in the United States. I'm not sure how often this is used in other countries, but I know that officers were actively searching the videos of crowds that were protesting in order to identify people and make some decisions about whether or not a person, is breaking the law, and, identifying that person. And so they were actually arresting people that were not the people that they thought they were arresting, right? Just based on some of the characteristics that they think they're picking up on based on this facial recognition software. So this is actually a really big problem. We saw two different types of engagement in those two examples. So in the first one, just thinking about just ourselves and in relation to the data science for social good project that I mentioned before, we could align with existing data science initiative, right? So there's a program, you could actually apply for it and volunteer, and then, you know, that becomes something that you could align yourself with. But in that last one, Joy Buolamwini had an idea and she just kind of decided to start her own initiative. So either way, I hope you feel empowered to work on the issues that are important to you and create those opportunities if they don't already exist. So maybe there's something that you care about and nobody's actively working on it. You can start working on it, right? It's up to you. All right, so you want to be a social justice activist. So here's how you could become a social justice activist in 5 easy steps. The first thing you could do is choose an issue that you're passionate about. The next thing you could do is to, after you've identified that issue that you're passionate about, you could explore ways that you could use your skills and interests to promote change, either by starting a new social justice initiative from scratch or by aligning with an existing social justice initiative. Then you would actually, once you've actually identified this initiative and you found out what you need to do in order to, which is no easy task, obviously. Sometimes somebody just says, I need somebody who can do X, Y, Z, and then you just kind of jump in and do it. But sometimes you actually, as the person who is starting a new program from scratch, you'd actually have to figure out what are the best ways that I can get access to the data I need and partner with the organizations I need to partner with in order to work on it. So this is non-trivial, but this is essentially what has to be done. You do the work. And then obviously you don't keep the results to yourself, you share them so that the general community can have the benefit of what you're finding. And then you keep working on it. So maybe there's some other angle you want to explore. And so you have the ability to just kind of continue to iterate and when you're actually at a point where you feel that you've learned everything that you need to learn about this particular initiative, you can just move on to another project and start this process all over again. In the next few slides, I'd like to promote 3 organizations that are doing the work. And each of these is actively looking for volunteer data science talent. I'd like to highlight the work that they're already doing and share information about specific ways that you could lend your data science talent to these causes. And although these 3 organizations are based in the US, they are actively looking for volunteers all over the world. And so I definitely would not let that hinder you from reaching out to these organizations, or from, if you really felt like there was an organization that is closer to where you are, reaching out to an organization that has a similar focus and partnering with them and helping them however you feel like it's would drive the most value. So the first organization I'd like to highlight is called Measure. Measure is an Austin, Texas-based organization that was founded by Jamila Stiles when she challenged the Austin Police Department to show her the numbers based on that they were using in order to report their performance measures. So she ended up, based on those experiences, taking an active role in developing methods to measure community policing. And today, with the help of volunteer lawyers, doctors, activists, police officers, students, professors, web designers, lots of different types of technology experts, Measure has expanded beyond community policing into health, education, economic disparities. I can say that I've personally worked with Measure as a volunteer data scientist, and I really like that they emphasize policy change. So they partner with community members and policymakers to help create laws or change laws in the pursuit of fairness and equity. Measure is actively seeking volunteers in 4 key work streams, and I'll describe each of these initiatives, and I'll let you know where you can go to find out more and sign up. The first is an analysis of school discipline in the Austin Independent School District. They need 3 volunteers to help with designing a survey, administering the survey, and then analyzing the data collected in the survey. So they're looking for 3 volunteers, and they say that that would amount to about a commitment of about 8 hours per month for about 2 to 3 months. So if that's something that is of interest to you, especially if you have some experience with survey creation or survey analysis, then you might want to reach out and ask to join in on that initiative. The next effort is the Policy Care Team, and this is the one that I'm actively working on. The goal of this initiative is to create policy recommendations at the state, local, and school district level that protect Black girls from unfair treatment in schools, especially as it relates to disciplinary action. This one requires a commitment of about 4 hours per month. And obviously that's a minimum, right? So depending on how interested, how engaged you are, if there are certain things that you identify that you feel like you want to spend more time on, you could definitely spend more time working with them. But this is actually a really, really interesting project that is driving a lot of value in the community. They're looking for 4 volunteers. This is not really a data science initiative, I guess, but it is related, obviously, because it does help to support the data science initiatives that they have in the upcoming year. So they are looking for people who have grant writing and fundraising experience. They're looking for 4 people in particular. And finally, they're also looking for volunteers to help them with their blog. So they want people to contribute with content around health, criminal justice, economic justice, education justice, and they need 10 people. It doesn't say how many hours. Obviously, it depends on how long it takes for you to write up the articles that they're looking for you to write. But that's one of the things that they're also looking for. So if you'd like to sign up with Measure, or you'd like to learn more about their programs, you could visit the links on this page. And again, I'll make these slides available to the YR organizer, so you don't have to worry about capturing all of this information now. The second organization I'd like to highlight is called Protect Us Kids. And Protect Us Kids serves to so it was founded by Vita Woods. She was a cybersecurity executive at a financial services firm, and she was increasingly concerned about how often children were falling victim to sexual violence and exploitation through their activities over the internet. So today, Protect Us Kids is creating technologies and awareness campaigns that are all about protecting kids online. And they've shown that through their studies that these cyber crimes are more likely to impact youth from disadvantaged socioeconomic backgrounds, and that these types of sexual exploitations of children are happening in different countries around the globe. So this is a global problem that requires global solutions, global partnerships. So they would definitely benefit from having a variety of skilled technical volunteers all over the world. The leaders of their data science team said they're looking for volunteers to support 2 work streams. The first one relates to a map that they're currently displaying on their website. It's a very simple interactive map that displays a single metric related to human trafficking in different regions around the globe. So for example, you see one metric displayed for the region comprised of the United States and Australia, but they would like to enhance this map to display more content and possibly display values at a more granular level. So as opposed to the United States and Australia as one big region, they might want to look at the more granular regions that make up that larger region. And this interactive map would be embedded in their website, so they need a solution that works with their current website. And then finally, the numbers change over time. So the solution should be dynamic. Right, so it's not that they have a fixed set of data in a spreadsheet that just sort of needs to be, you need to display the numbers in the map somehow. And I haven't had a chance to come up with a solution for it, but they would need to connect to maybe some other data source, pull the numbers in, and then display those. And one of the things that I thought about as I, just kind of thought about their needs is that there are 2 tools that pop out, Leaflet and Plotly. that allow you to produce these types of figures with the content popping up in this interactive manner. So I think that would be something that would be useful. But again, once you actually get a chance to get into it and talk to them about their needs and understand their website, then you can decide which solution makes the most sense. And for the second volunteer opportunity, they're looking for volunteers to help them study the behavioral and societal impacts on trafficking victims, particularly children. And they want to understand the degree to which people around the world are aware of these crimes and understand what they need to do to protect children from cyber crimes. Now, this will be a larger effort that will require expertise from people with experience in a lot of different areas. They need help identifying community partnerships and identifying data sources, pulling the data in from wherever it's stored, managing the data. They also need help on the analytics side. At minimum, they need some help with someone who has data visualization skills to help them produce some dashboards. They said they prefer to use Tableau. So if that's where your expertise in, then that would be great. But if you know Power BI, that would also be okay if that's what your experience is in. And they also need people who are experienced in data mining and data modeling and using statistics or building machine learning models. And they're welcoming R and Python programmers. If you'd like to volunteer with Protect Us Kids, or you'd like to learn more about their programs, you can visit the links on this page. And again, the slides will be available later in case you want to sign up. Okay. And finally, I'd like to highlight Cape Fear Collective. So Cape Fear Collective is a backbone organization based in Wilmington, North Carolina. And that structure as a backbone organization means that positions them to support partner organizations who don't have in-house capabilities and resources related to technology and data science. Their current work focuses on deconstructing racism into its component pieces and using these insights and others to inform the construction of a racial equality index at the geographic level. And their plan is to release the racial equality index in 2021, but they're already sharing their findings through what they're calling the racial equality dashboard. The racial equity dashboard. So the racial equity dashboard provides a localized view of how systemic racism manifests as it relates to housing, civic representation, education, health, public safety, physical environment, food, just all these different dimensions along which we could actually study racial equity. It was created as a Shiny application that uses ggplot to produce the visualizations. And there are also links to deployed Tableau and ArcGIS dashboards and reports. There's a lot of information in the dashboard, but I wanted to highlight a few key insights. They created a metric called the Housing Burden Index, which measures the amount of a person's income they spend on rent, mortgage, or other housing costs. And the values are scaled from 0 to 1, where 1 is the highest regional burden. And so at the census tract level, they can see moderate to strong positive relationships, linear relationship between this metric and the percentage of the population that is Black, right? Which in an unfair society, which reflects that there might be some imbalances in housing burden across the different racial groups. Another insight relates to the pregnancy-related mortality ratio, or PRMR, or sometimes called the maternal mortality for short. And this is the number of pregnancy-related maternal deaths for every 100,000 live births. This metric is used by the CDC as a measure of a region's health, and you can see that the United States is doing very poorly in this area compared to other countries, with our PRMR almost tripling over the past 30 years, while most of the developed countries have either stabilized or they're continuing to decrease. And this is something that disproportionately impacts Black mothers, and this gap becomes wider with age and doesn't really seem to be impacted by education as it is for white mothers. And then one final observation that they noted in their app was related to voter registrations and how that varies at the county level in the Cape Fear region. That's the region of interest in particular for the Cape Fear Collective initiative. So for example, a couple of cities in this region, Brunswick and Onslow, were highlighted. Brunswick has a higher than average voting registration versus Onslow, which is lower than the regional average. And a lot of their census tracts in that particular region, which predominantly contains Black residents, are showing that they're below the 60% registered to vote regional threshold that obviously they would want to stay above. So this is the type of insight that is helpful so that community stakeholders can identify areas of low civic engagement and create targeted programs that can be directed to the areas that could benefit the most. So again, once they produce an application like this, for example, the elected officials or community partners don't necessarily have to know how to actually build these things or understand all the different technologies that were used to create them. But the important thing is just making sure that the insights are in a format that is easily accessible, that they can understand and that they can use in order to make decisions. Cape Fear Collective is always happy to hear from those who are interested in volunteer opportunities. They're specifically looking for people who have experience in any of these areas, ETL and Azure, data scraping, data cleaning, especially using tidyr, Shiny dashboard development, exploratory data analysis and visualization. And if you'd like to learn more about these initiatives, or if you'd like to sign up to volunteer, you can contact Nick Pilipew, their Director of Data Science. All right, so I have a couple of final thoughts as I close out this part of the presentation and open this up for Q&A. Just a couple of notes about social justice activism, which is something that I've been a space that I've been working in for many years, and I've worked with other people who have also come into the space. And so there's just a couple things that I definitely would like to share with you to ensure that your experience as a social justice activist is successful. The first thing I would recommend is that you be professional, right? So if you're an unpaid volunteer, that doesn't necessarily mean that you should be doing work that isn't of high quality, right? Because in a lot of these situations, these organizations are relying on you to produce these insights that are going to be used to make decisions, right? So, make sure that you're on time with the deliverables, make sure that you're responsive to emails, make sure that you're checking your work for bugs and errors, making sure that the data, you're doing your due diligence in the same way that you would do for your regular job, your real job, I should say. And then the second piece of advice I would give is that you should be a partner, right? So a lot of these organizations don't have, well, some of them do, right? But some of them don't have your technical expertise. And so when they ask you to do something, they might be doing it with the limited understanding of what's possible, right? So once you actually have an opportunity to understand what the question behind the question, like, well, what is their mission? What is it that they're trying to do? What's the problem they're trying to solve? Then you have the opportunity to push back on some of their ideas and say, well, maybe actually the thing that you're asking me to do is not quite the right thing that we should be working on. Maybe we need to be working on something else, or not something else, but maybe we need to use a different type of approach as opposed to the one that you're recommending. Or maybe there's this other thing that I can do that can also add value in addition to what you're asking me to do. So, don't just kind of blindly, take their list of tasks and just kind of cross them out, but actually partner with them in order to help them. And finally, I would encourage you to be yourself, right? So you have your own skills, your own background, your own style, and your own passion. So I would definitely encourage you to bring that into whichever initiative you find yourself working with. That's all I have as far as content. Here's my contact information if you'd like to connect with me on LinkedIn, or if you'd like to just kind of chat further with me about any of these things. I'm definitely available to do that. And yeah, that's all I have. Thank you for your time. And yeah, I'm happy to take any questions.
Yay! Well, thank you so much. That was incredible. Thank you. Well, we do have a few questions. We have a few questions on YouTube, but I have a queue of questions for you, as I told you.
Yeah, let's go.
Well, first of all, yeah, thank you very much. That was great. The call for volunteers is extremely necessary. We know it's a problem everywhere, and it's great to have people around that are willing to help. So thank you very much. And now, in your opinion, so what do you think that our community and the broader data science community can do better to foster social justice in general?
Well, so that's actually a really good question. So I think that one of the things that we don't, how can I say this? So one of the things, and this is not really a dig necessarily on R in particular, I think this is sort of for data science in general. A lot of times we're trying to learn a new tool, right? And we start with the IRIS data set or the MT cars data set, or, you know, just some data set, the Titanic data set, right? It's just some throwaway data set, right? But sometimes it would be helpful to use some of the different types of data that are out there in order to use as an example as people are trying to learn new things, but also use it as an opportunity to expose people to these different types of issues or causes that are out there to channel them into volunteering for to solve certain types of problems. That's one thing. And I think another thing would be to just, like, I know that there are different hackathons or, you know, different types of events that are whose purpose is to work with the community and solve different kinds of problems. So that's one of the things I think that the art community is doing well, and I think they could continue to do to seek out other groups, because some groups, they just don't know who to ask, right? They don't know that they can reach out to someone and ask them, hey, could you include my problem in your hackathon? They're not even thinking about data, right? Or they're not thinking about data science. They're just, you know, trying to do things using the resources and knowledge that they have. So I think it helps for each of us to be individual ambassadors of R and to be ambassadors of data science, and to, when we see those opportunities, to proactively reach out to a group and say, hey, actually, I saw you were struggling with this, you know, I have some ideas, or I have access to a group of people who might be able to help you. And so, you know, maybe we can talk and have some sort of partnership. So those are two things I thought of.
That's awesome. And be kind as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I see a lot of people that have really good intentions and really want to help, but at the end of the day, there is no kindness involved, and then everything gets a little bit more difficult, especially when it's about volunteering.
Yeah, especially, you know, as it relates to data science. I think we in data science tend to be, what's a nice way to say it? We tend to think that we have all the answers, right? And that we can just kind of go into this community, like I'm just thinking about that compass example, that model where somebody said, okay, this is going to be great. I'm going to build this model and it's going to predict how often, you know, or who's likely to, you know, offend, but they're not actually realizing that this is something that could be used as a weapon against people. It could be weaponized, right? There's some person who has nothing to do with all the people in your algorithm or whatever you did, you know, whose life is now hanging in the balance because of what your algorithm said. And so that's where we have to have a little bit of humility and realize the things that we're doing are not perfect. Let's actually take a more responsible view and see how these technologies are impacting the community.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. So would you like to tell me then, since we're talking about chapters, would you like to tell me how is it like to run an Our Lady's chapter? How is your experience? And then tell everyone as well, anyone who would like to start an Our Lady's chapter, how that work?
Yeah, so I actually didn't start my chapter. So my Our Lady's chapter was already formed before I arrived in Dallas, and I just happened to join it. And the person that was leading it at the time, I think she needed to step away for, for personal reasons, and was looking for someone to step up. And I just got so much value out of it. I didn't want to see it die. So I said, I'll step up. And so that has definitely been a rewarding experience. As an organizer, I find that I learn a lot from, even though I'm expected to be the expert, right? I'm the person that knows a lot about R, and I'm trying to come up with content. I'm coming up with this or that. But the ladies themselves, I think they humble me in a lot of ways, because, there's certain types of ideas that they have that I just didn't even think about, right? Because I don't know everything, so there's things that I don't think about, or there's ways that I do things that I don't realize there's actually a better or different way, to do things, or there's issues that I haven't thought about that need someone to think about them, based on the stuff that they're doing in their work. And so anyway, it's just a really, really rewarding experience. And I thank my R Ladies Dallas members for joining today. I definitely invited them, and a lot of them said they were going to come. So hey to you all. But for people who are interested in signing up, wherever you are in the United States, or any other place all over the world, you just I don't have the email handy, but if you Google R Ladies Global, and they actually have some information on their website that will help you to start a new chapter. So you could, first of all, make sure that you find if there is a chapter that already exists in your area, and if so, then you would just kind of join in with that one and leverage whatever is already existing. But if there's nothing there, then yeah, and there's opportunities to support you with just help with technology, with help with educational resources, help with funding in some cases. So yeah, definitely reach out to R Ladies Global, and yeah, they can help you get set up.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much. So we got one question that kind of ties in with what you're saying about stepping up on the R Ladies community. So in your opinion, what would be the best way to build a legacy, a community legacy, so that when newcomers come and let's say you were ready to step out, they would be ready then to step in? What would be your advice for people that are running communities right now, but that they're thinking that might want to step out soon?
Wow, I had not thought about that. That's a really important question that I think I hope a lot of organizers are thinking about. I think the key is to make sure that you as the organizer are not 100% responsible for doing everything, right? As far as coming up with ideas, as far as even leading events or coming up with ideas for speakers or projects to work on. The more engaged your membership is in your activities, the more likely you'll find somebody who's invested enough to want to step up and make sure that everything continues so that it lives beyond you. Just thinking about myself, like I said, I was involved. I wanted to be involved during the entire process, of my time as a member of R Ladies. And so I was definitely invested and didn't want to see it go. But yeah, I think engagement is key. So anything that you can do. I know sometimes people are just very shy and they feel like they don't have a lot of value to offer, especially when maybe they're new to R, or maybe they don't have as much expertise as you have maybe in data science or in R in particular. But anything that you can do in order to help them realize, even if you give a 5-minute talk here or there, like lightning talks, or you're volunteering to help with this, or you're bringing in that speaker, or you're helping set up this event or this space or something, that's anything that people can do to realize that the responsibility of keeping this group going is not on one person, it's on everyone. Then not only does that help you as an organizer, because, obviously it's easy to burn yourself out, but that helps, to create lasting change.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you for that. I have a question here for you, but you're welcome to say you don't want to talk about it.
Okay.
If you don't want to talk about it. But I would love to ask you, how is the COVID crisis in Texas?
Oh, I can talk about, just my general impressions of it. So maybe I haven't been following the numbers specifically, but I have noticed that people tend to be resistant to following guidelines. And so that has unfortunately meant that even though we are seeing some some positive changes in the sense that our numbers are going down in certain cases. We're far from being back to normal. There's a long way to go. There's still people who are unfortunately dying or contracting this or having, terrible health outcomes. So I think, and we're still considered a hotspot. So even, for example, Illinois, I really want to go to Illinois, but apparently Texas is on a list of cities that are states that have to quarantine, for 14 days, if people are coming from Texas. So definitely not happy about that, but I am seeing some changes that are promising. So, but yeah, I'm okay. I'm working from home now, and will be for the foreseeable future. So I guess from a work perspective, it hasn't really impacted me as much, but from a life perspective, I guess I'm definitely anxious for things to get back to normal. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, I think everyone, no problem at all. But yeah, I think at this time, everyone is kind of anxious for it to go back to normal, whatever normal is going to be after this ends, if it ends.
Yeah, and actually,
okay, but since we're talking,
oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I was thinking about even the fact that we're doing this as a webinar as opposed to an in-person. Like there's a lot of conferences or events that are turning into the online format, and that's been a little frustrating because I actually I give a talk and then afterwards, people will come up to you and talk to you a little bit, and you get a chance to network. It's a little harder to do, obviously, through just sort of chat and Q&A, through the web. But I'm definitely excited about like I said, the fact that things are getting better, and soon, hopefully, I'll have an opportunity to give live talks again.
Absolutely. Well, we'll wait for you. As soon as you can travel, if you want to go to Ireland, absolutely, you're more than welcome.
Awesome.
Perfect. So we were talking about the difference between states, like how going from one state to another, you need to actually quarantine. So let me ask you then, how easy is it to get access to data in the US? Like, does it differ very much from like area to area? Are authorities willing to share? Is there any open data related to like law enforcement? How is that working?
Yeah, actually, I'm glad you asked that question because that's something I forgot to, I wouldn't say forgot, but I had it as, just some extra content in case we had time to discuss it. But I did have, for people who are interested in doing some of their own social justice types of research, a lot of people are posting their data online. So these are just some general resources, but there are some specifically if you're interested in criminal justice, if you are interested in studying health disparities, education disparities, finance, voting, lots of different things in here. So I do have that available in case anybody wants to do that. And sometimes it's as easy as just downloading the data from the website, but sometimes you have to maybe submit some sort of request. Then, like, for example, there was a study I did on the Chicago Police Department traffic stop study. So they were in the city of Chicago, the police officers were required to collect all of this information on every single traffic stop, and that related to the race of the person that was being stopped, and whether they got a ticket or not, and whether they were searched or not, and the type of vehicle, and all kinds of different things. But they had to capture all this data on every single traffic stop, and I just had to send them an email saying, "Hey, could you send me this data?" And they just sent me a couple of DVDs of data, and I was just able to download it. So some of them are quite easy to get access to. There's one of them in particular, the Police Data Initiative, which again is mostly focusing on the United States, but different police departments have volunteered to, based on the results of that 2015 White House Police Data Initiative, to make their data publicly available on this portal, and so you could just kind of download the data. But there's a lot of different individual states or cities that are creating their own data portals, and they're making data available that you could also download as well. So yeah, it's kind of all over the place. Some places will obviously be more forthcoming than others. And sometimes you'll find that the ones that are more forthcoming are the ones that are, maybe don't have as much to hide, I guess, in some sense. Or maybe they're feeling more confident about, their place as it relates to, how equitable they are. But sometimes the data can be redacted as well. So you'll find, I guess, in some of the criminal justice data that I've seen, they'll say, well, this person was, because of the nature of the crime or the nature of, or maybe that person's age or something, maybe they were 13 or 14 years old. So that person's record was not included in there. So there's definitely a big spectrum, but I think it just, a lot of times it starts with a data search online. And then sometimes you have to maybe partner with some of these other kinds of organizations who are more familiar with the process of getting access to data. And then you could leverage it, especially if you have an interest in pursuing your own research project. You can maybe just kind of do that as a partnership with them. And then you could both leverage your talents, I guess. They're leveraging your talents, you're leveraging their connections to the community as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing. And just remind everyone that the slides will be available right after the talk. So be patient. You'll get all those links. Be patient.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I just need to I just need to clean up the notes, but yeah, I'll definitely make all those available. It's just a link to a Google Slides document. So definitely want you to have those.
There's a lot of information there though. So yeah, so ML on the YouTube chat is saying that there is some public legal data that is open, that was acquired from web scraping in Virginia. And he's also willing to share the link on YouTube. So if anyone wants that data, just send a message to ML on the YouTube chat.
Absolutely. And there's something that's actually a really important point, because sometimes the data are accessible, as a download or connecting to some sort of database, but sometimes you can scrape the data from a website. Like the data is embedded in some HTML, or maybe you could use something like, Selenium or something, like if especially if you have to go across different web pages and, automatically, get this number from here and get that number from here and so on, and actually put it into some sort of a table, or use some of the other HTML scraping tools that are, what is it, RVest, and I don't remember the names of some of the other ones, but Beautiful Soup in Python. But yeah, there's a lot of resources out there. So if you see the data are there, right, and but it's not in a convenient format, then that might be up to you to find a way to scrape it. Yeah, that's certainly an option. Thank you for mentioning that.
No problem at all. So ML also has a question, and I think after that, I think that might be our last question. Actually, I wanted to ask another one. But let's shorten up this a little bit. So do you have any suggestions of people that would be great to follow on Twitter? They're involved with data science and social justice.
Ooh.
Yeah, the overlap there.
That is a really good question. I don't have anybody off the top of my head. I know, well, I guess there's one. So Data for Black Lives is one that I follow, and I'm actually personally involved as a volunteer for Data for Black Lives as well. They look for, I didn't include them because they weren't actively looking for volunteers right now. The three groups that I highlighted are looking for people right now, but that's basically how they let people know what they're working on or what they're finding, or how people who are interested can become involved. And so I definitely would encourage you to follow them. Data for Black Lives, the number 4, Data for Black Lives. That's one that I can think of off the top of my head.
Okay. I was gonna ask you about them as well, which is not that enough time for all my questions.
Oh, we could do one more.
So okay, perfect. So I'm gonna go for ML question then. So he's saying that he's not really good with machine learning. So he's asking if you have any articles on binning data or how to bin data properly?
Well, if you don't have experience in general with machine learning or data analysis, there's a lot of courses available that you can use. So I can't think of one that's helpful for binning data in particular, but I found that Udacity, the Udacity platform, has a lot of really well done videos. I really like that the exercises are graded in real time, sort of like you can actually, they tell you to do some sort of task, you write the code, and then you click a button, and then they can let you know if your code was correct or not. And so that's really helpful to get that kind of immediate feedback. But they've got a lot of as I was transitioning from biostatistics to data science, they really helped me to learn some other things that I didn't know in particular about data science, about programming, about big data technologies, machine learning. So I definitely would encourage you to look there.
Okay, perfect. Okay, can I squeeze one more? Or are you too tired?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so this is the last one, I promise. And what is in your opinion, or like if you have any idea, what would be the best way to encourage young African American or Black women in general into data science?
Oh, okay. Yeah. And that's something that I'm actually very passionate about as well. I do a lot of diversity and inclusion activism, I guess you can call it that. So I do some mentoring. So I'll find, well, maybe I shouldn't say this, but so a lot of people will kind of find me on LinkedIn and will ask me just sort of out of the blue, hey, I saw that you have this background. I'm trying to get into this field. I was wondering if you have a few minutes to answer my question, or, just kind of chat with me or something like that. And, I usually just go ahead and respond to those and say, yes, of course, I'm happy to help there. So I definitely would encourage you to talk to other people that have have had a successful career in data science and find out, what they've been able to do in order to make that happen. I definitely would also encourage you to anchor, to leverage different types of organizations. So there's one, Blacks in Technology is one that I've worked with in the past. I know that they post a lot of really interesting seminars, and they've got a lot of people with different backgrounds that are that can help you with advice or job placement or different things like that. But there's a lot of industry-specific programs. So one, for example, the Joint Statistical Meetings has a diversity workshop and mentoring program. So I used to be chair of the American Statistical Association's Committee on Minorities and Statistics. And I worked with other people, many other people, to help put this program together and serve as a mentor myself, but also bring in other people to be mentors and come up with content that not only talk about the practical aspect of, what is it that you need to learn in order to be a data scientist, but some of the psychological or the social aspects of just, what does that mean? How do you feel? And how do you manage some of the pressures that you might feel personally or from, other people in your work environment? So I definitely would encourage you to align yourself with one of those types of groups. Sometimes maybe within engineering or maybe within psychology and so on, you might find that there are different types of organizations like that. So I was just highlighting a couple that I've personally worked with, but I definitely would encourage you to look for mentoring programs that, especially that target, well, general mentoring programs would be useful, but there are some that specifically work with or target Black men and women who are interested in going into these fields. So I definitely would encourage you to align yourself with one of those.
Oh, well, thank you. I promised you that was going to be the last one. So I promised you for the third time that was going to be the last one.
Great question. So, great format. I'm sorry I didn't see all the chat, so I guess I'll get a chance to look at that later. But I appreciate everybody who decided to log on. Thank you, Lais, for being a great host and for asking all these great questions. And yeah, thank you. Enjoyed myself.
Thank you for joining us, Sydeaka. Like, for real, there is a lot of love in the comments. You're gonna appreciate have a look at them later on.
Excellent. Okay.
And Michael, would you like to join us as well to say goodbye? Are you still there?
Of course, I am there. So, Sydeaka, once again, thank you very much. It was inspiring, and I must admit, I'm very moved. Thank you for being there. We are very happy that as YR Foundation, we can support not only people who are showing us advanced in tech itself, but also how we could use this tech to forge a better new world. That's really impressive that we have such opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
To all of our viewers, thank you for your time. We do appreciate you, and hopefully see you on the next seminar and see you on YR 2020.